What's going on, guys? John Lee with Drone Zones USA here. So we had some major updates with the remote ID and the flying over people and flying at night for Part 107 remote pilots, and that actually was taken into effect today, April 21st, 2021. And so I thought I would just show this to you guys. Of course, it's on the FAA website. Just give you the basic rundown on what it says, and that way you will know. So the operations over people general overview, the operation of unmanned aircraft systems over people final rule is the next incremental step towards further integration of unmanned aircraft in the national airspace system. The final rule allows routine operations over people and routine operations at night under certain circumstances. The rule will eliminate the need for typical operations to receive individual Part 107 certificate of waivers from the FAA. This is really cool but I will tell you, you got to be extremely safe if you think you're gonna fly at night, because I mean it is extremely dangerous and hazardous for your drone more than anything. It's really difficult to your spatial reasoning is really whack, and so when you take the recurrent training, they have now added some of the additional training for the night flying on there. It's pretty cool. I did take the recurrent before they had it up. I saw it as the recurring, so I did it, but then I ended up getting an email from the FAA saying that it was posted, so I redid it and got credit for it. So the rule was published in the Federal Register on January 15th, 2021. Connections to the final rule were published in the Federal Register on March 10th, 2021, delaying the effective date from March 16th, 2021 to April 21st, 2021. So originally, it was supposed to, like it just said, was supposed to have gone into effect, but it was delayed. I'm not sure why that was, but here are some of the highlights of the rule. Of course, that full remote ID final rule was like 292 pages. I mean, them things are just unbelievably long. So if you've got the nerve, read through that thing. But hopefully this will give us a general overview, and some of you will find it useful. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications. So without any further ado, let's jump right in. Why is the rule needed? In June 2016, the FAA published remote pilot certification and operating rules for civil small unmanned aircraft weighing less than 55 pounds. Those rules did not permit small unmanned aircraft operations at night or over people without a waiver. On February 13th, 2019, the FAA issued a Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, NPRM, titled Operation of Small Unmanned Aircraft Systems Over People, which proposed to modify these regulations to permit routine operations of small unmanned aircraft over people and at night under certain conditions. The FAA received over 900 comments to the NPRM by the closing of the comment period on April 15th, 2019. As technology improves and the utility of small UAS for activities that previously required manned aircraft increases, the FAA anticipates an increased demand for flexibility in small UAS operations. This rulemaking is one of a number of regulatory steps the FAA is taking to allow for this growth. This final rule amends Part 107 by permitting routine operations of small unmanned aircraft over people, moving vehicles, and at night under certain conditions. It also changes the recurrent training framework, expands the list of persons who may request the presentation of a remote pilot certificate, and makes other minor changes. What are the operations over people categories? The ability to fly over people varies depending on the level of risk that a small UAS operation presents to people on the ground. Operations over people are permitted subject to the following requirements. Category 1. Small unmanned aircraft are permitted to operate over people provided the small unmanned aircraft weighs 0.55 pounds or less, including everything that is on board or otherwise attached to the aircraft at the time of takeoff and throughout the duration of each operation. contain no exposed rotating parts that would cause lacerations. In addition, for Category 1 operations, no remote pilot in command may operate a small unmanned aircraft in sustained flight over open-air assemblies unless operation is compliant with remote ID. So you're going to have that remote ID saying open-air assemblies. So it looks like maybe sporting events or anything like that. You're going to have the remote ID. I don't understand why that's not something that's already built into the DJI with all the geospatial metadata, that they already have in the photos. So I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with that and how much that's going to cost me. Category 2 and Category 3 provide performance-based eligibility and operating requirements when conducting operations over people using unmanned aircraft that weigh more than 0.55 pounds but do not have an airworthiness certificate under Part 21. In addition, for Category 2 operations, no remote pilot in command may operate a small unmanned aircraft in sustained flight over open-air assemblies unless the operation is compliant with remote ID. It kind of sounded like the same thing. So it's a combination of the two. Category 3, small UAS have further operating restrictions. A remote pilot in command may not operate a small unmanned aircraft over open-air assemblies of human beings. Additionally, a remote pilot in command may only operate a small unmanned aircraft over people if the operation is within or over a closed or restricted access site, and all people on site are on notice that a small UAS may fly over them. Or, the small unmanned aircraft does not maintain sustained flight over any person unless that person is participating directly in the operation or located under a covered structure or inside a stationary vehicle that can provide reasonable protection from a falling small unmanned aircraft. So, my thing is, as a remote pilot and even having my Part 107, even when people are getting together, even if there were a sporting event, no matter what was going on, I would just not fly directly over people. I mean, you can keep a safe distance, and I just wish we had better zoom. I wish I had a drone that could do my thermal, it could do my zoom, it could do my mapping. I still feel like we have yet to find the ultimate drone, that's really under $2,000. Back to the categories. Category 4, operations in addition from the NPRM. This category allows small unmanned aircraft issued an airworthiness certificate under Part 21 to operate over people, so long as the operating limitations specified in the approved flight manual or as otherwise specified by the administrator do not prohibit operations over people. Additionally, no remote pilot in command may operate a small unmanned aircraft in sustained flight over open-air assemblies unless the operation is compliant with remote ID. So they're making a big point about the remote ID. To preserve the continued airworthiness of the small unmanned aircraft and continue to meet a level of reliability that the FAA finds acceptable for operating over people in accordance with Category 4, additional requirements apply. So in some of these cases, it's all going to be, depending on your category is going to be dependent on, how much your drone weighs and the impact, the amount of damage that it could actually do if it were to hit somebody and fall out of the sky, which I was looking earlier and saw 0 cases reported of drone accidents. So I guess they don't really consider a flyaway an accident if it doesn't do any damage. Here's a note. Sustained flight over an open-air assembly includes hovering above the heads of persons gathered in an open-air assembly, flying back and forth over an open-air assembly, or circling above the assembly in such a way that the small unmanned aircraft remains above some part of the assembly. Sustained flight over an open-air assembly of people in a Category 1, 2, or 4 operation does not include a brief one-time transiting over a portion of the assembled gathering, where the transit is merely incidental to a point-to-point operation unrelated to the assembly. So if you're just flying over somewhere real quick, and you have to barely pass over somebody, that's fine. And that's what I was basically trying to say is, don't fly directly over people. Find somewhere where you can position yourself. You can fly really high. You don't necessarily need to, but if you just need to fly across something, that's fine. And which is, I think, the same point that they were trying to make about flying over moving vehicles. Don't fly down the middle of the highway, but we'll see what they say. In a change from the NPRM, the final rule permits operations over moving vehicles, provided the small unmanned aircraft operation meets the requirements of categories 1, 2, or 3, and either the small unmanned aircraft must remain within or over a closed or restricted access site, and all people inside a moving vehicle within the closed or restricted access site must be on notice that a small unmanned aircraft may fly over them. Or, the small unmanned aircraft does not maintain sustained flight over moving vehicles. A remote pilot may also conduct operations over moving vehicles with a small unmanned aircraft eligible for Category 4 operations as long as the applicable operating limitations in the approved flight manual or as otherwise specified by the administrator do not prohibit such operations. So I think that they're really kind of trying to, be as politically correct as possible, basically saying it's going to be based on the weight. And I think they're going to lean towards the manufacturer's recommendations on whether or not that should be. I really don't know. I really don't understand that. It's just everybody needs to have remote ID. If you're Part 107, this will make it opened up a little bit better for the flying over people, flying over moving vehicles, and the night operations. But you will need this recurrent training for your Part 107 for this actually to be effective and be valid. On the night operations, this rule, basically all this is having your anti-collision lighting, which you already know that you should have. And basically, that's it. This rule allows routine operations of small UAS beginning April 21st, 2021 at night under two conditions. The remote pilot in command must complete an updated initial knowledge test or online recurrent training, which is what I just said, which I have recently done. And 2, the small unmanned aircraft must have lighted anti-collision lighting visible for at least 3 statute miles that has a flash rate sufficient to avoid a collision. Which I don't have the link, but those are getting really cheap and really affordable. I did find one. I need to order a couple more. I got one for my Mavic Pro Platinum. I need to get another one for my Phantom 4 Pro. Here's the remote pilot knowledge test information. You can see the link at the top of this page. It'll take you right here, but if you go to the FAA.gov, you can find all this stuff, and if you've already got your Part 107, you already know that. But the final rule updates the initial remote pilot knowledge test to include an operation at night knowledge area. Additionally, which I can vouch for, that was different, and they did add that to the recurrent training. Additionally, the final replaces the requirement to complete an in-person recurrent test every 24 calendar months. This is really cool. The updated requirement is for remote pilots to complete online recurrent training, which will include an operation at night knowledge area. The online recurrent training will be offered free of charge to remote pilots beginning April 6, 2021. And April 6th, the day I got that email, is the day I got it and the day I passed it. Woo-woo! Drone Zones USA, baby. In addition, small UAS operators must have their remote pilot certificate and identification in their physical possession when operating, ready to present to authorized individuals upon request. I think I need to print that. I think I took a screenshot or something, but I always have my actual Part 107 with me, which, I don't have it in my pocket, but I'm not flying my drone. But remember, you got to always make sure you have that on you when you're flying in case, anyone, law enforcement or FAA agent requests that on the spot. You need to be able to present that, make sure you have all your ducks in a row, and just make sure you're following the rules, and just makes it better and safer and more fun for everybody. Let's see. There are multiple training options depending on your current status. If you do not hold the Part 107 remote pilot certificate, you must take the UAS Initial Aeronautical Knowledge Test Knowledge tests may be scheduled on the Airman Certificate Testing Service ACTS website, and there is a fee associated. I think it's about $150, $160. Current Part 61 certificate holders take the Part 107 Small Unmanned Aircraft System Initial ALC-451 online course. Available on the FAA Safety Team FAA STEAM website for no cost. Part 107 remote pilots who are also certified and current under Part 61 take the Part 107 excuse me. Take the Part 107 Small Unmanned Aircraft Systems Recurrent ALC-515 online course. Available on the FAA Safety Team FAA STEAM website for no cost. All individuals who hold a Part 107 remote pilot certificate, regardless of currency, take the Part 107 Small UAS Recurrent Non-Part 61 Pilots ALC-677 online course. Available on the FAA Safety Team website for no cost. And so that's one of the cool things. There's been some changes that's going to make life, more fun and more educational for remote pilots, and be able to get more cinematic shots, better for all kinds of business and development, and obviously some changes to flying over people. Get your anti-collision lighting. I'm John Lee with Drone Zones USA. I hope you liked this video and it was informative. Be sure and hit that like and subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications. On to the next one.